Hey, it's Josh again. We're here in my office to talk about my 60-gallon aquarium from Tideline. It is a 48 by 18 display tank, which is very similar to what used to be a 40 breeder. Obviously, it's another foot longer. I kind of like the footprint. I used to at one point have a 40 breeder and I enjoyed it. I like the dimensions on this aquarium because it's the same height as it is deep. So proportionately, it's like a big tank but small. It does pose its own challenges being shallow like that, due to the fact that when we try to deliver the flow in the tank, it doesn't necessarily pass by the corals, it kind of hits the coral, so that was one of the challenges. But in a nutshell, I suppose we could probably talk about some of the equipment. For the return pumps, there's two Seche 1.0s. The tank originally came with on the back wall 2 little random flow generators. I'm not the best at cleaning and taking care of the aquarium, so they get gummed up with coralline algae pretty heavy. I got rid of them. So I replaced them with 3/4 inch lock line. I actually don't really run a lot of mechanical media in there. If you look in the back compartment, you'll probably see algae, you'll probably see cyano, maybe a couple of aptasia. So it's pretty dirty. But yeah, there's not a lot of time spent on the aquarium. So I kind of did it as basic as possible. You'll see underneath, I've got just a simple 5-gallon bucket with kalkwasser. I refill that bucket halfway full twice a week. And the reason why I do that is it's not a calc stir. It doesn't keep moving the kalkwasser in the bottom. It's a concentrated solution of kalkwasser. So we use 6 grams per gallon. We mix it in a big 55-gallon brute and we use that throughout the course of the day in the farm. And I just refill from there. So it loses its potency from the beginning of the week to the end of the week. To deliver the kalkwasser, I use a single head Camor. It's a FX STP peristaltic pump. And I have the rate set at a constant pace 24/7. It's 1.9 mils per minute. And what that does is it gives me my top off pretty much. So I don't ever top the tank off. That's how much I evaporate. And that affords me calcium and alkalinity through the process of introducing kalkwasser, which is nice because I only have to dose a little bit of all for Reef 2 or 3 times a week. I'll test the alkalinity on an average once every 2 weeks, which is probably a little bit less than I should. But like I said, this is very minimal effort that I put into the tank. More than anything, just having it next to my desk, I can kind of cue in on things that are good or bad, and visually I'll know whether or not I need to check something. So the filtration is really just the rock. There's no skimmer. There's the power heads, like I said, the 2 Seche 1.0s, and that's it. But I started with mature rubble, which is the reborn media from 2 Little Fishies, and I started with mature rock from one of our systems already. And they gave me a jump start because I think I might have waited a month before I started putting corals in here, and it was rock solid already, growing coralline algae, not testing any kind of nitrate or phosphate because it was actually doing what it was supposed to be doing. For the most part, the only real maintenance that I do is a weekly water change of 15 to 20 gallons, depending on the day. I use a brute trash can, so I don't really measure it. How about this? I drain it down to here. Probably every 3 or 4 water changes, I'll take the gravel vac and I'll just go down into the media in the very front, which is really nice. So I hate sand. Personally, I'd rather have a bare bottom tank, but I like the benefit of all the bacteria. So having this media affords me that, but it does require a little bit of service. So if you're to move some of the media left or right, you'll see there's a plume of detritus underneath it. But it's just as easy as sticking that gravel vac in the bottom of it, and it actually draws all that detritus to that one location, and you don't have to gravel vac the whole entire thing. Super nice, really easy to take care of, and honestly, I really like the look of it because it's all purple coralline algae. The tank has 2 MP10s. I'm still on the fence about this. I started with 1 MP40, but the problem is the tank is only probably 14 inches or 13 inches inside of the aquarium because it's got the all-in-one compartment in the back. The problem with that is my rock kind of protrudes out into the path of the water flow. So if you have an MP40, it's 3.5 or 4 inches in diameter, but the flow coming from it is the same 10 inches or 12 inches that the tank is. I feel like flow is best delivered from multiple sources at a lower intensity. I switched the MP40 to 2 MP10s, one here in the front, kind of blowing across the most open section of the tank. And then on the other side in the back, I have it going across the back wall. And I'm still not completely happy with it, but I think this is better than having the single MP40. Both of the power heads are set on Reef crest. Now they're turned all the way up. So what that means is because Reef crest is a setting of randomized highs and lows, it will go all the way down to the lowest setting, but it'll also go up to the highest setting. And that's really nice because from time to time you can see stuff from the bottom of the tank actually rise up into the water column and it'll get sucked out the weir. And then there's other times where it's so low, it looks like it's dead flow. But a lot of the corals like that when you have a mixed reef, which I suppose we could probably talk about too. We've got everything from mushrooms to gonnies. There's even an Australomusa in here. At one point I thought it was the chalice. But there's a bunch of chalices, there's montes, there's acropora. A large part of the reason why I have a tank at my desk is because I spend a lot of time here, and it's not really by choice. I prefer to be in the water. And it gives me an opportunity to stay engaged with the coral, still continue that passion for it, because it's hard. I mean, what we do here, for me, at least for the last 10 years, has been a little bit of everything, and less so over the years with the coral. So this keeps me engaged, it keeps me excited about it, and this tank really serves a purpose. I wanted to back up some of the things that I really enjoyed, that I wanted to stick around for a long time. It gives me an opportunity to put something in here and hope that it turns better. You know, maybe at some point it ends up in our regular catalog selection. And then too, there's corals that I just, for me are a staple. So this tank is primarily SPS. We have everything from Walt Disney to RMF Acid Trip to a home wrecker, our Paradise Tenuous, Reef Raft, Black Sabbath, Worldwide Corals Pink Panther. I think a lot of these are actually named corals. There's our Quicksand Monty, which is probably the biggest stunner in the tank. It's literally front row center, and of all these Monties here, it's probably the best in color. There's our Swamp Thing Bounce, their Uranium Bounce, and then a whole bunch of staple chalices too. And then on the far right hand side, I've got a whole collection of Micromusa. For me, keeping a reef tank is a couple of things. One, because I want to back stuff up so that it stays around for the term. Two, because I want to see if it can get better. If it doesn't, it goes back to the well. And then three, it's a very visual thing for me. If I can't enjoy looking at it, then I don't really care for it. Like it is as simple as that Yuma is. I mean, to me, it's beautiful. I could look at that thing all day long. I like to feed it. I like to watch it move in the flow. And the fact that it's in an acro tank is pretty cool to me. This torch on the left-hand side, it's two legitimate colors. It's kind of forming a third. There's orange coming out on the very face of it, but it's one head split into two colors, and it was nice. That particular coral, when it came in, it was a single head, and we kind of almost lost it in the beginning. It receded on one side, so we put it back in medication. It came back to this tank. It started doing that again and went back to medication. And now it's a success because it's splitting into two heads. Hopefully I get both colors on both. Right behind it is the Amazeballs Ghani. Again, something really enjoyable to look at. There's certain textures to a display tank. So it's not a frag tank. If it was just a frag tank, I would keep everything that I liked. But because it's a display tank, you'll see I've got 1, 2, and 3 stags. Because the rest of the coral, they're gonna kind of form these bouquets, for lack of better terms. Acropora have very similar shapes, unless they're something abstract like an efflo or solitariensis or a stag of whatever variety. So I've got a green stag opposing all the other pink tables. I've got a red stag opposing the rainbow tenuis. And then I've got a blue stag right in the front, which is completely different from everything else behind it. There's millies there, there's tenuis there, and then there's our white walker, which is a showstopper. And that's kind of like a really pale blue white. So if you look, each and every coral has an opposing color next to it. When Victor asked me to do a segment on this tank, I didn't really feel like it was ready because the corals aren't colored the way that I would like it to be, partially because I haven't been feeding the way that it should. There's a chocolate mimic tang, there's a blue-eye bristletooth, there's 4 regular blue-green chromis, there's a pair of green mandarins in here. And I've been feeding a lot of small particulate type foods like pack pods from Reef Nutrition, arthropods from Reef Nutrition, and then we've been playing around a little bit with the dried pellets from Nutrimar. I also feed the green seaweed on a regular basis for the tangs. There's a lot of good nitrifying bacteria in here, and for that matter, I have to feed a whole lot more. Plus there's a lot of mouths. I mean, you don't think about it, but all those stonies are little tiny mouths. They need food. So I am actually gonna put a 4-head doser on here, which I believe is on the way. It's gonna be a 4-pack from the Versa. And I'm gonna dose aminos. I'm gonna do water changes with it. And then I'm gonna add probably that all for Reef product. And the reason is because I do care about Acropora, and they need a little bit more care than I give it. The lighting is 2 Gen 4s from the Ecotech Radion group, and I believe the lights run for 9 hours total. And we'll actually share the profile. It's 3.5 hours of white, which I prefer to be longer, but because I don't feed very, very heavy in this tank like I should, I have to keep the lights at a little bit more of a minimal. You'll see in the graphing, I actually dropped the overall percentage to bring in the white, and it's almost flat all the way across on the graph because I run the blue stronger than I do with the whites on. The lighting profile is very simple. I run green, red, and white all together. Obviously the blues are on with that, and then when the white is not on, I turn all 3 of those off. So no red, no green, and no white. The reason why I do that is I like the spectrum the way that it looks. I don't pick a spectrum based on what it does better, what it does worse. I don't want the tank to look funny when I'm looking at it. So to me, a nice crisp white and then a really dark, rich blue is my taste. But again, this too is a mixed reef and it's shallow. So like I said, between the fact that there's mushrooms, chalices, and Ghanis in here, they're not gonna handle the really intense light that the acros want. So for that reason, you don't see the acros growing like gangbusters. The colonies aren't huge after, what, 8 months. But they do have good color. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And make sure if you have any comments, leave them in the section below.